Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Science Tuition Academy. Today's lesson is the second lesson on the nervous system, and the title is Reflex Actions. Let's go straight in. First of all, can I remind you of what a reflex arc, which is the pathway for a reflex action, looks like? Um, so, this is, in other words, another way of saying this is how the information is detected, the stimuli around us is detected, picked up, sent to the nervous system, and then you get a response. So this is what we looked at in the previous lesson. So as mentioned, first of all, you have a stimulus, which is a change in the surroundings that is picked up or detected by a receptor, which is a cell in your sense organs, whether they are light receptors in your eyes, or sound receptors in your ears, or taste receptors in your tongue, or touch receptors, or temperature receptors in your skin, and so on. The receptor sends an electrical impulse, that is the term you should use, electrical impulse, down a sensory neuron, which is the first neuron or nerve cell, and then another electrical impulse is sent through the second neuron, called a relay neuron, which is found inside the spinal cord. And then the electrical impulse is sent through a third neuron, called the motor neuron, to the effector, which is, of course, a muscle or gland that produces a response. So this is where we were last lesson. And the example we gave was of responding to a person putting their finger, maybe touching a hot candle flame. So you have the stimulus, which of course is the temperature of the flame, which has been accidentally touched. And then you have a temperature receptor in the skin, which detects the high temperature, the hot temperature. And then you have an electrical impulse sent through the sensory neuron, and then the relay neuron, which is in the spinal cord. Reminder that the impulse does not go to the brain straight away, that's afterwards. And then the electrical impulse is sent through the motor neuron to the effector, which produces a response. And the response in this case would, of course, be person moving their hand away very quickly from the candle flame. Okay, so this is called a reflex pathway. Okay, question for you. We did mention this, just have a think about this for a moment. Where are the relay neurons found? Okay, the relay neurons are the ones that are found inside the spinal cord, and they connect the sensory neuron to the motor neuron. Okay, an old name for them was connector neurons, but we call them relay because they relay the electrical impulses. Okay, so I want you now to have a think about. I'm going to pose some questions to you regarding today's lesson, and we're going to start off with swallowing. Do we, when we swallow, let's say you're eating some toast, do you have to think about swallowing? Do you have to consciously think about it? Oh, I must swallow now. Or does it happen automatically as soon as the food goes to the back of your throat? Okay. Do we all agree that you do not have to think about swallowing? It's something you do all the time without even thinking about it. Okay. Next question. Blinking. You're blinking probably thousands of times a day. Is this something you have to actively think about? Have a think. And the answer is no. Again, it is automatic. If you had to think every time you wanted to blink, so blinking is essentially to stop your eyes drying out. and it also helps remove dust, etc., from the surface of the eye. And if you've got flies buzzing around your eye, then it sort of deters them because of the eyelashes getting in the way. So there's a protective function there as well. If you had to think about blinking every few seconds all day long, um, I think your brain would have a lot of work to do and it wouldn't be very happy at all. Okay, it would be too much. Okay, so there's part of the brain that actually controls the blinking and enables it to happen automatically without you having to actually think about it. What about the next example, the third example, coughing? Is this something that you have to actually think about and make a decision about? Would you agree? The answer is no. Okay, if you're choking or you've got some phlegm in your throat, you will cough automatically. Okay. How about scoring a goal? Have a think for a moment. Is this something you have to think about? And I think you would agree, yes. Okay, when you need to score a goal, your brain is making lots and lots and lots of complex calculations very, very quickly. Okay, where are the other players? Where can I literally get the ball through? Which part of the goal am I going to shoot at, and so on. Okay, so there's a lot of thinking involved in scoring a goal. So you've seen so far that there are things that we have to think about, and there are things that happen, and we don't have to actually consciously think about them. There are parts of the brain that just automatically control them without us having to think. Okay, the next example I'm going to look at, and by the way, things that your brain doesn't have to think about and does them automatically. They're called reflex actions, reflexes. Here's another one. How about this? Pupils changing size. You will probably be aware that when you go into a dark room, the pupils get bigger. And when you stare at bright light, the pupils get smaller so that your eyes don't get damaged. For instance, when you look at the sun. Is this something that happens automatically, or is this something your brain has to actually think about? Oh, I better make my pupils bigger or smaller. I think you'd agree that this happens automatically. Therefore, we can say that pupils changing size depending on the external light, which is the stimulus. We can say that this is a reflex action. How about this one? Do you feel tired? Is that something you have to think about? Have a think. And I think you'd agree, yes, you'd have to actually think. There are some thoughts going through your brain telling you whether you're tired or happy or sad or peaceful or agitated. These are things you have to think about. Therefore, they are not reflexes. They are not those fast automatic reactions. Okay, what about writing? Is this something you have to think about? And I think you'd agree the answer is yes. When you're writing a letter, you're writing an email, you have to actually think very carefully about the order of the words, etc. Okay, and the thoughts you are trying to convey, you have to think about those things. Okay, so there are some things that happen virtually automatically, very fast, and there are some things our brain has to actively think about. Okay, so remember, the word was reflexes. Okay, we're looking at reflex actions, which is the title of today's lesson. So we had a look at some of those. So I have some options on the screen, which I need you to write down. Okay, and you can also go back, you can pause, go back, and write down all those examples of reflexes that we agreed on, which were, automatic. So In terms of options, you've got number one, fast, number two, slow. I think you would agree that a reflex action is fast. What about the second row, voluntary or automatic? And what about the final row? Number one, does it involve your brain first? Or number two, it doesn't involve your brain straight away. Just have a think for a moment, write down what you think the correct um, parts of a reflex action are, and the answers are here you go. Okay, so reflex action is a fast automatic reaction that doesn't involve your brain straight away. So if you're actually cooking, let's say, and you pick up the hot pan, it's got a metal handle, and you pick it up accidentally, and you're well on your way to burn your hand. The first thing you do is drop it automatically. You do not just stand there saying, I think I am burning my hand. I better put it down. It doesn't involve your brain. You automatically, straight away, you drop the pan. And when you step on a pin and it stabs you in the foot, a sharp pin, you don't stand there thinking, oh, I better jump. No, you do it straight away. That's called a reflex action. Okay, so this is the definition of a reflex action. Make sure that you get this down. Make sure that you memorize this definition. A reflex is a fast, automatic reaction that protects us from danger. Okay, they are protective because we respond immediately, automatically, without our brain having to do any thinking. So therefore, they do protect you from danger. Okay, whether you're about to burn yourself, you step on something sharp, you've got a train hurtling towards you, you automatically jump out of the way, you've got a bee buzzing around near your head, you automatically start to blink, and so on. Okay, going into a bright room, looking at the sun, your pupils change size and become smaller automatically. Why? Because there are muscles in the iris of the eye that actually make the pupil constrict and get smaller. So it's protective, so you don't blind yourself. Okay, so that's why reflexes protect you from danger. Okay, so make sure you always recall that definition on a question on reflexes. Okay, so what we said was that the electrical impulse goes from the receptor through the sensory neuron, through the relay neuron, through the motor neuron to the effector. You respond straight away. This takes milliseconds. Okay, this whole process from stimulus to response is very, very, very fast. That's why it doesn't go to the brain straight away. The electrical impulses do go up the spinal cord to your brain after it's happened and after you've responded. You realize within milliseconds that you have actually burnt yourself or stepped on something sharp. Okay, so it's a very, very, very quick, easy pathway involving those three neurons. So this is called the reflex pathway or the reflex arc. Okay, now remind you once more, just have a look at the screen. Make sure you memorize all of these parts of the reflex arc. And feel free to pause the screen if this is something you need to look at in detail. Okay, so that's a reflex pathway. Moving on. Right. What makes a reflex action so fast? This is an actual question. What makes them so fast? Number one, and it's worth writing this down for your notes. Very, very fast electrical impulses. very fast, high-speed electrical impulses. Number two, the brain is bypassed initially so that the response can be fast. And there are some diagrams there. Okay, so we have a knee-jerk response where, a doctor might hit the knee or just below the knee, and the leg moves forward, the lower leg. You can see that the electrical impulses just flow through the spinal cord and back out to the muscle, which is the effector. Okay, you can see the same here with pin in the paw of a animal. Okay, so this is why they are very fast. Okay, moving on. There's a table here that I would like you to get down, and the columns are reflex, stimulus, what sets it off, sense organ, where is the receptor found, in which sense organ is involved, the effector, that's the part of the body that responds, and what the response is. Okay, now the four reflexes that we're going to be looking at as examples are sneezing. That's probably an example you've not met at school. You may have, but it's likely you haven't. So have a think. What's the stimulus? What's the sense organ involved in sneezing? What's the effector? And what's the response? Next one, number two, touching a hot bulb. Number three, stepping on a pin. Number four, producing saliva. What sets that off, producing saliva? So have a think, get the table down, try and fill in the bits that you know, and pause this video now to enable you to have time to fill in the answers. Okay, if you've unpaused now, I'm going to go through the answers, but please don't unpause until you've actually had a good go at this, okay, by pausing the video. So here we are. We'll start off with the first three. So we have stimulus. The stimulus for sneezing could be dust. Okay, it could be a virus in your nose. Okay, so often one thing that makes people sneeze is dust. The sense organ will be the nose. The effector that actually responds will be the chest muscle. So when you're about to sneeze, you take a breath in, you go, chew, like that. So your chest muscles are um, literally forcibly pushing the air out during a sneeze. But it's not just your chest muscles, like the diaphragm, for instance, and intercostal muscles. It's also your facial muscles as well, whilst you're sneezing. And the response is, of course, that you sneeze. Touching a hot bulb. The stimulus is the temperature or heat of the bulb. The sense organ is the skin. The effector is arm muscles, because the response is the muscles contract and you move your hand away. Check that you've got all of this, because these are all pretty important examples, just in case they come up on your exam. The next one is stepping on a pin. So we have a sharp pain, that's the stimulus. The sense organ is the skin. The effector is the leg muscles, and the response is to jump. So that, remember, the leg muscles contract. We always use that word when we're talking about muscles contraction. Okay, so that was the first three. The last one, producing saliva, I will do with you. Okay, so the stimulus is, let me just get a pen. The stimulus is, of course, usually food. Okay, now it's either the sight of food, so you're seeing food and your mouth starts watering, or you smell food. You smell, hopefully, some very delicious food. Okay, the sense organ is either the eyes that are doing the seeing, or it's the nose that's doing the smelling. So there are smell receptors in the nose, and there are light receptors in the eyes. The effector, remember, an effector is a muscle or a gland. So in this case, the effector that responds is the salivary gland. And the response is, so try to put it in a more scientific way than mouth waters. The response is you secrete saliva or produce saliva ready to eat. Okay. And of course, the saliva not only lubricates the food, but it also has the enzyme amylase in order to help break down any starch in the food. Okay, so these are four examples of reflexes. Notice that we're doing things in great detail, probably in a lot more detail than you've done in class, because we're actually analyzing each reflex very, very deeply. Okay, so if you've written that down, let's move on. And we've got a true or false quiz. So there are going to be some statements, and I would like you to have a think about whether they are true or false. Okay, so uh, I'll give you a few seconds, let's say 10 seconds for each one to have a good think about it. Okay, so first one, reflexes are fast actions controlled by the brain. Have a think. And the answer is false. Reflexes are fast actions, but they are not controlled by the brain. They are automatic, and the information is received by the brain a little bit later on after you have actually responded. Okay, so they save time, not having to think about it, and you respond straight away. So they do protect from danger. Let's have a look at the next one. The sensory neuron sends impulses to the spinal cord. The sensory neuron sends impulses to the spinal cord. And that one, of course, is true. The sensory neuron sends impulses to the relay neuron, which is inside the spinal cord, which, of course, is part of the central nervous system. Let's have a look at the next one. A receptor is found in a muscle or gland. Have a think. And I think we can agree that the answer is, of course, false. Receptors are found in the sense organs like the eyes and the skin and the tongue and the nose. So, and the ear. So, receptors are found in the sense organs. Next one. A motor neuron is found in the central nervous system. Have a think. Hopefully, you remember that it's actually the relay neuron which is found within the central nervous system inside the spinal cord. Okay, as we saw on the diagram previously. So the motor neuron actually comes out of the spinal cord and goes all the way to your muscles and glands. So it's not found inside the central nervous system. So that, of course, is false. Okay, next one. This is a tricky one. Have a think. Electrical impulses can travel in any direction in a sensory neuron. Do they travel in any direction or do they travel in one direction? And the answer, of course, is it is false. They travel in one direction. So the electrical impulse goes along the sensory neuron to the relay neuron. Okay, fantastic. I hope that you've been doing well on those so far, and you've got a very good understanding of what we've covered today about reflex actions. So that was the end of the lesson. So today, just to recap, we have looked at the structure of the spinal cord and the reflex pathway. And we've gone over that again. We've looked at what a reflex is. We've looked at examples of reflexes, why they're important, and their role in protecting you from danger. And we've analyzed some reflexes from start to finish. And we've also done a little progress check through a true and false quiz. Hope that your knowledge and understanding of reflex actions is amazing. By all means, go back again if there's anything you want to review again. And can't wait to speak to you for the next lesson. So thank you very much. Take care and bye.